Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive and welcome to outer space. Daniel here. This is going to be part one of my look at Zaya, that joke has been made, Legends of a Drift System. This is a game from Far Off Games, and it is a outer space sci-fi adventure game. If you've ever wanted a game that gives you that feeling of a great space opera, perhaps something like Cowboy Bebop or Firefly, or really, it reminds me a lot of the kinds of space anime that I used to like a lot in the kind of like late 70s throughout the 80s. It has that feel to it, and there aren't a lot of games like this. There are a lot of space games, but a lot of times the space games tend to be more 4X style games. They don't so much have that adventure feel as they do more of a competitive, resource exploration, extermination type gameplay. There's typical 4X stuff like Eclipse and those kinds of games. This has that look kind of with its hex tiles and hex spaces, but really this is a super thematic space exploration game in which you are a pilot of a ship trying to make a name for yourself, and you are going out, you are exploring the solar system, you're exploring dead worlds and star systems and asteroid fields and nebula and all kinds of things, trying to get fame and glory, trying to become the best star pilot in the system. And it is a lot of fun. So this is going to be a part one of a review. And the reason I'm going to do it like this is usually I kind of do my reviews, we come in late game or after a game is set up or after a game is completed, and I talk about my experience with the game. But this game I wanted to do a initial video just at the very beginning of the game and kind of go through that as well, because this is a game that when I am setting up, I get excited to play it. And a lot of that does have to do with just the amazing table presence that this game has. It is super colorful and bright and kind of has a somewhat old school look to it, and I might be accused of using that as a non-derogatory way of saying that the UI, the overall graphic design doesn't scream like modern. It doesn't look super polished. It looks like something that maybe is a little fan made. It looks like something that maybe would have come from a game, 20, 30 years ago. But I don't say that in a derogatory manner. There is a charm to the look, and because it's so bright and colorful and kind of, very much like a toy-like experience, and a lot of that, of course, does have to do with the colors that are being used and the miniatures. So you guys know I am not a big miniatures guy, but I would say that this is one game where the minis elevate the experience for me. And a lot of that has to do with, the way that the ships are elevated. Sorry about that, but it just came to me. And of course, they're all painted, so I don't have to do it. And they're okay paint jobs, not a lot of shading or anything, but just the way they look and the fact that there are so many of them. And it just adds a lot of fun to the board, especially when you get to set them up and you see your ships floating in space like this. The game is really a joy to view on the table, and its bright, colorful nature has a lot to do with that. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of interesting things to look at. The game does not look boring on the table whatsoever. You've got these brightly colored ice damage and brightly colored regular damage tokens. Your cargo goods are all brightly colored. And it really does feel like kind of like an 80s color scheme, if you ask me. It also has some of the best metal coins in the game. And the great thing about all of these components is that they are not Kickstarter exclusives, or they were not Kickstarter exclusives. They were not upgrades. These weren't things that you had to spend extra money on. All of these things that most games would have you have to spend extra money as add-ons, they all came in the box. Now, this is a game that I think needs the expansion, the Embers of a Forsaken Star. And this I am playing with that expansion and with the Missions and Powers expansion. I do know that the game is out of print right now, and it is commanding some pretty hefty prices on eBay. I have heard rumors that it is coming back into print, but that's all I know. I am really hoping that when it does, they just pack all of the expansion material into the base game box, because in my opinion, like I can't imagine playing this without the expansion, especially since my favorite way of playing this is solo, and you need the expansion really to have a solid solo experience. So here we have the beginning of my game that I have just set up. And with the expansion, with the solo rules, you always start with near this star system here. And it is a relatively young star, I believe. One of the really cool things about Xayah is that there is lore written for each of these star systems. So let's see what we have going on with near here. And when I discover a new star system, I like to read about it. Only a hectocycle ago, Near was a common white dwarf. The sudden cataclysmic change of Near is now known as the Turn. No one is quite sure what happened. Perhaps the polarity of the star changed, or the dynamic horizon of Farron's call altered its state. All we truly know is the system is drastically different than the reports we had. Near is dying. So Near is actually an old star. It is dying and taking the entire system with it. Pretty cool. The lore writing is actually really good in the game, and the rulebook writing is actually really good. This is one good example of a good rulebook. Unfortunately, it has one major flaw, and we'll go over that right now. I like the size. It's that nice magazine size. It has a small index. It's not so much of an index as it is a table of contents. And as a matter of fact, on the rulebook for the expansion, they do call it a table of contents. But you have a nice component layout of everything you're going to get with a picture, and inside, everything is well organized. Each section is its own little color-coded block of text with picture examples. It's very easy to find things in the rulebook when you need to. And it is a nice book to look at as well. It is a little wordy. You might think that this is a really, really complicated game because the rulebook is pretty long and there is a lot of text. It's not so much a complex game as it is it's not deep, it's wide. And there's just a lot of little things to remember going from phase to phase in the game. But like I said, the rulebook is well written. All of the rules are here. It's got a nice visual design with the different colors, so it's really easy to tell how things are laid out. And it's got a ton of visual examples, which is something I really like about the rulebook. And then, like I said, at the end of the rulebook, you get a really cool lore section where it goes over the weapons, it goes over the kinds of shields the ships are using, the different star systems they're going to go to, the bigger star systems, the smaller star systems. So you get a lot in this rulebook, and it is fun to read. It is a game that I do need to read the rules before I play, because I usually only play this a couple times a year, and it's hard to remember everything. The problem comes when you start introducing the expansions, and then you have to have your Embers of a Forsaken Star rulebook, which has rules that supplement the rules in the basic game, plus some new rules. And a little bit of a different kind of setup. So you have to read one and then you have to reference the other. One of the big things that the expansion Embers of a Forsaken Star adds is this economy board, which keeps a tight economic control over the resources to alleviate one of the problems people had with the game, where certain trade routes were too easy to take advantage of. We'll go over that at when I come to it in my final thoughts video. And then another thing that the rulebook, that the expansion adds, are these events, which are just random things that happen throughout the game that just add some monkey wrenches into how things are going to be playing from turn to turn. There are some blank cards that they give you. There's a ton of fan-made content for this game, and the main designer Cody Miller is really excited about helping people make things for the game. So there are all kinds of different fan supplements that you can download. And then you also have this solo rules, which also supplements and offsets and adds to and modifies rules from both manuals for the base game and the expansion. So when you're playing solo, you also have to refer to this. And there are two different ways to play solo. You can just play one-off games, or you can play a campaign style game. It would be really nice to have all of these just in one rule book, and I'm hoping that that happens sometime in the future. So one of the funnest things about starting Xayah, and that's why I wanted to do this video series like this, where I'm going to do a video before I've even started playing the game, is picking your ship. So when you start the game, there are 3 tiers of ships. You start with tier 1, and hopefully by the end of the game, you're going to be up to tier 3. You don't want to stick with a lower tier for too long, or you're going to be at a disadvantage. And each ship comes with its own playmat, and it's going to show you your cargo hold, how you can your hull here, how you can hold different engines and weapons and that kind of thing. Plus, you can hold your cargo in there for transporting cargo if you want to go for an economic victory. It's going to have your price, how much they cost, how many spots are on the hold. It's going to have your impulse total, which is, you can use an impulse once per turn for movement. It's going to give you how much energy you have. You have to use energy to use different parts of your ship. You're going to have a name. You're going to have a spot for your bounty. So if you do outlaw things, you will become a bounty, and then other people can hunt you down and take that bounty. But the really fun stuff is at the back here, and it tells you all of your super thematic stuff about your ship that you're going to choose. And none of this really has anything gameplay relevant, but it's really fun to read, and they put a lot of thought into it. Your ships are kind of like characters, and even though this game doesn't have a ton of character development, it doesn't have, like, kind of soft role-playing rules like maybe something like Warhammer Quest does or something like that. It still does feel like you are playing the life of this character and this life of this star pilot. And so it's a lot of fun to read the backstory for your ship and to come up with a thematic reason why you're doing what you're doing. This is a game that, kind of like Talisman, it doesn't present a narrative up front with a lot of flavor text or a lot of story that you're going to be reading. Actually, there's no story you're going to be reading. The narrative comes from you as the player connecting the dots in between what is happening on the board and developing your own narrative, and it does that almost effortlessly. But as you can see, you're going to have the make and the model of your starship, the class, time since new, different types of power cores, your avionics systems, your interior, exterior, different options, and none of this has any gameplay relevance. It's just fluff, but it's good fluff. And then you also have a backstory here, and these are all pretty well written, especially when you consider this is a backstory for a spaceship. This is the last time I buy something online, you tell yourself once again. You didn't intend to become a ship captain, but a late night auction and a few too many Kemplar Reds made that decision for you. Ah, yes, the drunken late night Amazon purchase. A lot of my books were purchased like that. At least the ship runs, though that seems to be the high point. She used to be a terra hauler, mostly fossil fuels, which still provide a dank odor to the cabin. The sailor told you it was a custom ship, and by that she meant it was a tin can patched together just well enough to pass emissions and hermetics. You thought about trying to get your money back, but you decide to cut your losses and try your luck in the verse. And then it has a little story that you read if you are victorious in the game. And there are a number of tier 1 ships. There's the Vagabond. There is Persistent Memory, which I use a lot just because I love the name of that, Persistent Memory. There's a look at that if you want to pause that and read. And then we've got the Puddle Jumper, the Swamp Rat. Nice, really basic layout there. The Ghost Stalker, the Numerator, and the Easy Tiger. Another one of my favorites just because I like that name, Easy Tiger. It reminds me of Tiger, the original title for Alfred Bester's The Star's My Destination. Additionally, each ship now with the expansion comes with 2 starting powers. Each ship in the game has powers. Depending on the tier, you have 2 tier 1 powers, 2 tier 2 powers, and 2 tier 3 powers. And as you progress through the tiers of ship, you get to keep your last ship's power. So by the end of the game, if you're in a tier 3 ship, you should have 3 powers. So let's just take a look at 2 of the ones that I usually choose, the Easy Tiger and the Persistent Memory, kind of give you a little bit of a idea of what the kind of powers they are. So the Easy Tiger has the TAC-X Rapid Tactical Recalculation. Immediately after rolling any die, spend 1 energy to re-roll it. This ability allows you to re-roll any one of your own die rolls. You must take the new result. Okay, that's nice. So for 1 energy, and the Easy Tiger will have 7 energy before they need to stop and refuel, basically. So you can do that once per turn pretty often. And a die roll in this game comes in handy because there are a lot of spots where if you roll a 1, well, like on this spot here, if you are in any of these debris fields, you roll a d20 on a 1 to 3, boom, you're dead. This game has a lot of single, roll a die poorly and you die. So I can see quite a few modern gamers, people more into like Euro style games, getting pretty upset at that. But for those of us who cut our teeth on old Games Workshop games, we're used to rolling a 1 and being done. So a reroll is really nice on that. Also, conversely, anytime on your d20, anytime you roll a natural 20, you get a victory point, you get a fame point. And I should talk really quickly about that. The fame tracker here. This is how you're going to win the game. At the beginning of a game, you're going to pick a number of points. It doesn't really matter that you want to play up to. So I'm going to play up to 15 points. And then there are various ways that we'll go over in the next video to get fame points and to move up the track. So you can play a really long game or you can play a shorter game, which is nice. All right, then my other power here for the Easy Tiger is the HyperCalc 32 Preemptive Theory Matrix. When you would roll to use an outfit is something you have in your cargo hold, like a shield energy, a shield engine, a weapon, that kind of thing. Instead of rolling, you may treat each die as a natural 3. So that kind of gives you an average, a medium. Instead of having a swingy die roll, you can pick a 3. When you would roll for a border, instead of rolling, you may treat the roll as a natural 2. So it just gives you a little way to mitigate some of the luck in the die rolls. Now let's look at persistent memory and see what this ship has as its. I love the look of persistent memory. It looks like an old kind of a Cylon Raider style. You got the Mag Harpoon. Hitch a ride with passing ships. This ability allows you to target any adjacent ship. On a successful roll, you may move along directly behind the target ship when it moves, up to the number of spaces specified below. So this isn't great when playing solo because there are only maybe a few NPC ships, and we'll talk about those in the next video. And then we have Total Recoil. Shunt all weapon power to thrusters. Persistent memory ship. You may use weapon outfits as if they were engine outfits. That's really cool. So if you have weapons in here, you can use them as engines to move. So you don't even really need to have an engine on this ship. But each of your shield piercer mods are 3 weaker than usual. So there is a little bit of a downside. So I always use Easy Tiger or persistent memory. I think I'm going to try something a little different. I am just going to pick the ship that I'm going to play on this next solo game at random. I'm not looking. I will stop and pick the top one. Boom. All right, what do I have there? The Ghost Stalker. Okay, I've never actually played the Ghost Stalker. Kind of a smaller ship, only 9 hold spaces there. Let's see what I'm in store for. You saw her on a shady used ship lot. From the outside, she looked sleek, small, and cramped. From the inside, she smelled like freedom. The salesman seemed nervous, and you think the ship might be hot. With hushed tones and bad breath, he tells you of the many undocumented and possibly illicit modifications. The old you would have been uncomfortable, but now it really turns your crank. You even haggled for the price. In an instant, you go from Civ Accountant 3471 to Captain of the Ghost Stalker. As you pull starward, you wish your co-workers could see you now, starting a life of adventure. How cool is that? That is such a great way to introduce you to this game. I love it. I love that story. It's making me super excited to play the game. And now let's see what power I'm going to use here. I have a disruptor field. Fly undetected through planetary shields. Okay, that's pretty nice. A lot of the planets will have shields that protect them. Good planets have like a good shield that protects them from outlaws, and outlaw stars, like bad planets, have a force field that also protects them. So they serve the same ultimate purpose. But as the Ghost Stalker, as the name would imply, I can sneak past things. That is very cool. On a 20, you may choose to use this ability on 2 separate shields or twice on the same planetary shield, so going in and out. And it costs 2 energy to use. I also have this Crypto Lance. It's an older code, sir, but it checks out. Planetary shield borders never stop your movement. You must still roll when you cross them. On a 1 to 10, take damage, but don't gain bounty. Okay, so this guy's all about flying in and out of planets undetected, not bothered by their shields. So which one am I going to use? I'm going to take this disruptor field. That sounds like a fun power to have. So all right, so that is my ship. Let's find the mini here. Here we go. It's a little small guy. I like him. So this solo game is going to be me as Captain Daniel piloting the Ghost Stalker. And we're going to come back again after I've played for a while and talk about my adventures and talk a little bit more about the game, the NPCs, how to get fame, some of the mechanisms, some of the things I like, maybe a couple things I dislike if I discover some along the way. We'll talk about all those decks of cards over there and just talk about our space adventures. So all right guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and we will talk to you later. Bye bye.